Hello and welcome to the BF's Word. I'm your host, Benjamin FriedJamin Friedman, and here with me today for our, I guess now technically second published cast, is David TheDynasty Spitler. We're missing Jesse iLLogicall Hilton today, but he will be joining us when we preview the top half of the league later this week. Let's kick off let's continue our NALCS summer preview by talking about the teams that we put in a tier called consistently decent.
We called them.
Yeah, we called them. We don't really know yet, and we're going to talk about what we do and don't know, I guess.
Although I guess it's kind of a relative term because we get a little more hopeful as we go on in this. So.
Oh, for sure.
All right.
So, but let's start from the bottom and work our way up. So Team Dignitas widely avoided relegation when they played Fusion. Kiwi Kid was hitting 4 and 5 man ultis on Alistar. It was awesome.
Yep.
They performed really poorly in season, but they made short work of the, I guess, overhyped Fusion.
Apparently so.
I guess so. Dignitas didn't change up the roster at all, despite trying to get Helios.
As far as we know.
Which was an interesting saga.
It's a very Dignitas story, to be honest. Like, hey, what if we grab this guy? Oh shit, never mind. We can't get it in time.
That's so Dignitas.
Go out there and get him, a Zingy.
So yeah, they're sticking with the Zingy in the jungle to start this season, which I guess it's at the heart of the Dignitas question. Do you think they can avoid relegation with the current roster, or at least avoid having to play in promotion relegation? And if not, how would you fix it? Or even if you think they're just good enough to avoid it, how would you get them into the playoffs?
So I think to start this little review of Team Dignitas off, we need to get into one of our favorite segments here. Are they coast or are they not? And the answer for Team Dignitas, thankfully, is no. They are not coast.
they're literally not.
They are not coast. So, with that in mind,
so you think they'll win a game or two?
I think they'll win at least 2 games, which would be better than coast. So, with that said, unfortunately, I think this is going to be a really tough split for Dignitas. We saw that Zingy didn't really work out that much in the back end of the season as he took over. He is playing better than when he started, but I think with the overall level of LCS going up, Dignitas is just kind of treading water at best, and that's not going to bode well for them. I think they're going to have a really tough split here. I will agree that I think that the bot lane for Team Dignitas is their strength. Core JJ is doing better. Kiwi Kid is still doing as best as he can to carry a team, playing aggressive supports and, doing what he can. But I just think that they're struggling, and I don't think they obviously didn't make any moves. I don't think that's enough in this situation to avoid relegation again. I put them at about 9th in the LCS. I would put them ahead of TDK, but I do think they're gonna get passed up by newcomers here, and I don't think they're gonna be able to take enough games off the top half to really succeed.
Yeah, I'm not. So how would you fix it then? They have 2 Korean imports already, so they can't go out and import someone else. What would you, if you were OD, what would you do?
If I was OD, I don't know, man. I don't really want to be OD, so that's fine.
Wow.
Not that he has an enviable position. Being the owner of an LCS team would be great, but I think he shoots himself in the foot enough and has a little bit too much of an ego for Team Dignitas is good. Plus, I really do think he just wants to get back to Europe, and that would probably work out best for his organization. However, Dignitas as a team, if we want to,
they can sell us the team. We'll take it. He can just go have the European team, and we'll take the team.
We'll call them Team Beach.
Team Dynasty. We'll call it Team Dynasty just for you.
All right. To fix them right now, the best we can do is to work on getting a stronger jungler if possible. There aren't that many really. You can look to the relegated teams. Dignitas, or you can't pick up Helios. You might be able to pick them up halfway through the season if that's even possible. They could try that. They could pick up.
Isn't he doing mandatory military service in South Korea? Isn't that the story?
It hasn't been officially announced or anything. So as far as we know, he's just kind of stalling, or just waiting for now.
Chilling. I guess that's true.
They could look to Nintendo. That might be a decent pickup. I mean, you have the guys who are constantly floating around. There's a couple of them. Short Race playing for Winter Fox, but they might be able to steal him. You can do that. That's a legal move, and that would be interesting to see as well. But I think that shoring up jungle and working on getting Shifter back into carrying a little bit more, back like when he was on Team Coast, the previous iteration of Team Coast, back when he was
Game University. Let's just call it GGU.
They played as Coast for longer than they played as GGU. But anyway.
Yeah, but
just
GGU is not Coast. If we played Coast or not Coast for GGU, they would be not Coast.
Oh, absolutely. But anyway, get him back into his somewhat carrying ways. Keep the bot lane strong, and then just get that whole objective shot caller meta game worked out better. That'll really help them out. And do I think they can do it? Probably not, unfortunately. But it just doesn't look that there isn't an insec or a Bangy just lying around in NALCS. It's going to be really hard to make do with what they have and improve in the course of this one split.
Okay, so let's move on from the depressing discussion about Team Dignitas and talk about Team 8. So Team 8's exciting. They only made one move. So Nian Tanso is now playing for Maple Street.
Starting in week 2.
Starting week 2. Do we know what they're doing in week 1? Because isn't Maple playing for...
That is a really good question. I honestly do not know. Because as far as we know, he's also currently playing in the CS qualifiers. But I do believe in the rules, and I'm probably going to get reamed over this if this is wrong. He can play 2 games, but if he plays a third, he becomes ineligible for the NACS. So I think he can sub in just for this week for Team 8 and be okay.
Okay. All right.
He would have
that
to...
would be interesting. I can't imagine playing for the team that had already benched me. But
yeah, definitely. No, it's definitely an awkward situation.
We just watched Steelback do it at what do we call it? At MSI.
Right.
We were there. I should know what it was called. So, all right. So, do you think that's a big enough upgrade to get them into the playoffs on their own merit, or do you think they're going to have to depend on regression after a lot of the changes that Gravity made, or depend on Gravity's regression in order to get into that playoff spot?
So, in my opinion, and we have to start off with everyone's favorite segment here on the BF's Word, Coast or not Coast?
Definitely not Coast.
Team 8.
I'm guessing it's not Coast.
Team 8 is not Coast. Team 8 is not Coast. Team 8 is a team with some hope. They've got some good players. We love to watch Cali Trolls. He's a favorite of the podcast. We like Nian. I like Nian. I don't know about you. I like Nian. I think he's...
We decided that Nian looks like my cousin, so now we just have to cheer for Nian forever. Sure. Plus, we were Team Marn fans.
So Nian, I think, does help them out. And then I think the team as a whole they have some good stuff to work with. They just need to kind of work as a team on being more consistent. That was their biggest thing in the last split, was they had very poor consistency. And they most of their games ended up being just, hey, Cali Trolls or Slushy, you can win if you get fed. And if that works, then we'll win. But as far as this split goes, I think they might have a slightly higher win percentage than last split, which was, it was fine. It wasn't super great. They were 9. They were 9-9. They might they might push it up to like 10-8. Again, as I mentioned when we previewed Dignitas, the talent pool is higher in a LCS, that, in my
You
opinion.
don't get those free coast wins anymore.
You don't get those free coast wins. You don't get those mostly free Winter Fox wins right now. I think as a whole, the incoming teams, the two that are incoming, are better than the two that they replaced, which is, obviously how it should work. But I think that's going to push up everybody else a little bit. And the imports, the moves overall, I think, increase teams as well, the ones that we saw. So I think at the top's going to be better. I think the middle's going to be better. And so I think that even though Nien is a good move for them, I think they're going to, not get much better as far as results. I wouldn't be surprised to see them sneak in at 6, but I wouldn't gamble on it. I'm not going to put money down on saying that they're going to make the playoffs. I would expect them to be about 7. I think they'll.
Yeah, I think they'll finish exactly where they did this year.
And that's fine for them. They're not really looking to make worlds, so if they can just.
Well, they lose Kelly trolls, don't they?
Potentially, but again, if they have they have a long off season. The spring to summer is much better than summer to spring as far as building your player base. Roster
they'll be able
moves.
to replace him.
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
They'll have the potential to, and
They'll have a chance.
the time and the stability increased stability of having the 2 splits behind them to make
sure.
their major improvements. So I think it's good for them if they can just hold tight for now and kind of pull a rebuilding team, as as you can kind of see. Not that I think they need to rebuild their team, but just they need to work together over time to gradually get better and make minor adjustments.
They need time. That's if you could have this roster for a whole nother season, they might reach that point where they're consistent enough that they're starting to work their way up into that top half of the league. But
yeah,
they may or may not have that time. We'll see.
So yeah,
So,
I would like to mention that Team 8 is playing Impulse and Liquid in Week 1. So I think I don't think they're gonna win either of those games, even if they have Neonton. So as a Week 1 replacement, they might be able to win, to steal one of those games later on in the split once they've worked out as a team. But at this point, I still don't think they would have won it even if they had it. So I'm not gonna say that going 0-2 Week 1, which they will. I don't think that's going to impact their overall outlook on the season.
Right. So I think we'll talk about Liquid and Team Impulse. That's going to be the most fun podcast where you and I get to argue which team is better. And iLLogicall can sit there and just deal with us yelling about it. So let's move on from Team 8 and let's talk about the team in this strata, if you will, that made the most moves. They may have made the most moves of any team in North America this offseason. Gravity Gaming. They put on their big boy pants. They made some serious moves, which I think is just my favorite pun of all time. This offseason, Cop is going to move from AD carry to a coaching position, which apparently is something he's always wanted to do. And Altec is going to come in and play AD carry for them. St. Vicious also moved on to coach Coast, which is in fact Coast. And we should definitely discuss
Coast alert.
Yeah, we should definitely talk about St. Vicious coaching Coast later on, because that's a really sad moment for me. Replacing St. Vicious, though, is Move, a Korean player who was last playing for EDG's sister team. I don't know how you pronounce it, AD or Ad Gaming. I watched one VOD that I could find somewhere. It's digging around for 45 minutes when I should have been applying for jobs, looking for a VOD. And I got to check it out, and he sort of reminds me of Rush. Surprise, surprise. High solo queue Korean players remind you of Rush and Rainover. It's not surprises no one.
There you go.
But hey, Rush and Rainover seem to have worked out for their teams out west, so can only hope that the same for Gravity.
Yeah.
Do you think that these changes make them better right now? Do you think that they only make them better further down the line? And I guess I have a follow-up question after you address all that.
Well, I think if you take a look at the roster as a whole, you got Hanser, he can hold his own in top lane, really, to be honest. it's kind of a terrible lane right now in the meta. You can't really, unless you're Huni or maybe Koro, you can't really like make a huge impact on the game from top lane. So as long as you're not gonna just,
It's better than it was when it was just tanks, the straight up tank meta.
I mean, we're in the Cinder Hulk meta still, at least a little bit.
But
Hopefully,
it's
hopefully
like
we'll work out of it by the end of the
Hecarim,
split.
Cinder
but,
Hulk,
eh.
you know, not like
Yeah, I mean, and Hanser can play.
Zach B. Shen.
And Hanser can play some of the fun top laners. So we can get a little bit of that. But my main point is that he's gonna hold his own. He's not gonna just like be outclassed by a ton. You've got move. A lot of. This is kind of a buzzword, obviously, but he's got a lot of potential. He's got a lot of talent. We're gonna see how that works out. Keen's obviously somewhat proven now after his one split.
I love Keen.
He is what he
Keen
is.
Straight up one of my favorite players.
Keen is a strange mid laner in terms of his champion pool, his play style, but it works.
Can he be a podcast favorite?
It works
Can
out.
we just declare that right now?
You can declare that for you. Absolutely.
If iLLogicall was here, he would definitely say that he's a podcast favorite.
So, Altec is kind of the poster boy young prodigy. At this point, he's kind of needs to grow out of that and just become a great player. But we'll see. He's got some time. He's got a much better team now than he did before. Maybe that's all he needs to break out of his shell. And then Bunny Fufu obviously is a very solid support with potential to make fantastic moves in a given game. Obviously, that depends on what champion he has. Some of them just don't make plays. But give the guy Thresh, give the guy even Nautilus or Morgana. He can make plays. So it's a good team. A lot of talent across the board there. I see them as, man, it's tough. I think they're gonna be good. I think they're better than last split. As long as they can make up for the loss in shot calling that Cop and St. Vicious used to provide. Not that Cop was much of a shot caller on his own, but the veteran.
He definitely brought a lot of stability to the bottom lane.
And
sure.
And the veteran presence that the two of them had as some of the longest running LCS players still around. So as long as they can overcome that and succeed as a team overall, I think their talent level will help them improve. And I think if you give me them over the split, I think they have a chance to push over, a CLG or something like that. They might make fifth, or they're probably in like the 5th, 6th range. And then, when you get to the playoffs, who knows? They might be able to get on a run, beat a team like Liquid in the first round, and maybe move into an Impulse Liquid level team, and maybe make a play for the 3rd world spot at that point. But I mean,
so you think they're a threat for Worlds right now?
I think they're an outside shot.
Okay. Do you think that if this roster stuck together until next year, do you think that they're? I mean, would you? Obviously, that's like you have to look in your crystal ball and see what's going to happen to other teams. But do you think that they're? Right. Someone suggested the other day that they were built for 2016 and not 2015. And do you think that there's a lot of any truth to that?
I do think that's true. Especially when you're looking at Altec move, continuing to mesh Hanser, Keen, and Bunny. I think the team does have a lot of capability going forwards if they can get some stability, get some consistency, and more time to work together. I think as far as we mentioned with Kopp being a coach, honestly, we're still not at the phase in the game yet where the coaches mean a whole lot. To be honest, I mean, we see them help pick spans, we see them do VODs review and so on, but they're still not quite there to make a huge impact in the game on a game-to-game basis. So it's nice to see. Maybe he can help turn the tides on that. Honestly, the only coach I've seen so far who seems to be hugely important to his team's success is Fnatic's coach, whose name is escaping me. Daylor, I want to say.
Yeah, that's right.
I really do. Maybe a bit of Prawley, but that team is also just super talented. I think NA coaches are a little bit behind on their, importance to the team and helping the team. So hopefully Kopp can work on that, and that'll help Gravity if he can. Because again, like I'm saying, a lot of these coaches are just I don't think they're worth a whole lot in terms of wins above average coach, if that makes sense. Bring a
If
little.
there was a wins
bring a
above
little-
replacement level coach,
Bring a
stat,
little,
I don't
bring a
think
little
that-
sabermetrics into the.
Yeah, you
into
think
the
a good
LCS.
rating would be like 1 or 2? You
Yeah.
know, it wouldn't be. Yeah.
I mean,
That's
you're looking
fine.
at an 18 win league, 18 game league season. So, yeah, just a 1 or 2. But I think like 90% of coaches are flat
Can I-
0. You know.
Can I extend? Can I take like a really extended metaphor with basketball here, or is that too much?
You're gonna lose about half our audience, but that's fine. That's fine. Let's do it.
All right, so they really remind me of
Just-
the
just-
Oklahoma City Thunder.
Just bear with it and power on to
Okay.
power on to part 3 if you're not in the regular
if you
sports.
if you don't want to listen to me talk about basketball and have James Harden fantasies for the next 45 seconds, then
So,
just skip 45 seconds ahead or go to the next podcast.
So Dallas and Los Angeles fans can go ahead and skip to.
Yeah, but if you're a Rockets fan, stick by. Hold with me here. So Gravity definitely reminds me a little bit of the Oklahoma City Thunder, and part of what you were talking about too with the whole coaching situation. You know, people really questioned Scott Brooks even throughout that whole period of time, and now he is out of a job. But they had this core. You know, they had Harden and I guess Durant and Westbrook and Ibaka and Harden, and that's sort of what this roster is to me. You know, they bring in Move, Keen, Alltech, Bunny. They're all these high talent, high mechanical players who do crazy things that make you say wow week after week. And it's more will they all come together? They're all pretty young, you know. Will they all come together at the same time, and will the team ever coalesce into something better than that? And you definitely, I mean, the first year that the Thunder made the playoffs, everyone was like, well, they're just going to be around forever. Lucky for Gravity Gaming, there's no salary cap in the LCS. So they could keep that team together as long as they wanted. They don't have to trade James Harden to the Rockets, yes, and break them up. But
Yeah, I
do
mean
you-
that's
do you
that's
think,
less
uh,
a, that's less
Do
a
you think that's a fair analogy? Do you think that this is something that people should be looking to build their team to play against? You know, oh well, we have to worry about what Gravity is going to be like for the next year and a half.
I think that part of it is fair. I would like to clarify on the salary cap portion of that. It's not that there is no limit to what they can pay them. It's that there's no arbitrary cap contract increases. So, in that extent, it's they can just keep re-signing the guys for the same amount or whatever's competitive as long as they want.
Well, there's also no salary cap. There's no hard cap.
Right. But it's not that there's. It's not that they're like.
I wanted to just start throwing like millions of dollars
Yeah.
to the team. There's no rule that Riot says you can't.
Yeah. So, and then to kind of, I think that's an interesting, commentary on it, and I'd like to, see what, other people think about that in terms of their relevant sports, and whether we have soccer fans, baseball fans, whatever we can kind of. I always think that comparing sports with good metaphors and good analogies is really just helps orient everybody around your ideas and what's really just the similarities between these things, and it's good for
Are you
everything.
about to work Chris Bryant into this conversation?
Not at all. I'm about to work.
Oh.
I'm about to work in Are They Coast, the segment. So Team Gravity, because we missed this. So Team Gravity, Are They
This is
Coast?
tough. This one's tough.
They are not Coast. No, they are not Coast.
Okay.
Good for them.
But St. Vicious is coaching Coast.
So if we want to have a little Saint Vicious hour here, Saint Vicious, hopefully not an hour. This is part 2 of 4.
Maybe like a 2
A
minute
Saint
Vicious thing and then log out.
a Saint Vicious 45 second. So Saint Vicious coaching Coast is honestly maybe the first good move they've made, as long as he is allowed to build and not
Do you have
just.
like a picture of St. Vicious to put up there? Or
God, I
no?
wish I did, but I didn't prepare enough for our excursion into St. Vicious. So if we had, some sort of because what he said when he announced this move was that he was going to build a roster around what he thought would work, and challenger players with potential, so he could train, everybody. And if that's the case, that's fantastic for them as a potential. So, and that's maybe the most non-Coast move that's been made by Team Coast that we know of. And honestly, that's great. That's very encouraging for them going forward. So, for Mr. SV here, is he Coast? Not in the oh no, I moved it. Not in the Team Coast sense, but he is team coach in the he works for Team Coast sense. Maybe he can help fix that. Maybe he can make Coast not Coast. That's what we would like to see.
If you have a Curse logo, you can find him in a white beat or anything. Come on.
I Google searched St. Vicious on the side while I was talking. So,
all right. Well,
sorry.
That's okay. I'll forgive you. Yeah, let's keep an eye on that experiment as the NA Challenger Series unfolds this season.
Yeah, so that wraps up part 2 then.
So part 3, for anyone who's looking forward to the next bit, part 3 is going to be our I hate this word, teams with potential. It's really what it's gonna be the 3 teams fighting for third. I guess would be the best way of putting it. We will chronicle CLG, Team Liquid, and Team Impulse on the next podcast, and hopefully iLLogicall will be here with us. Thanks for listening. I'm Ben FriedJamin Friedman. With me, as always, is David, the Dynasty Spitler. Have a good